Welcome back, my podcast friends. And once again, this is Dr. Steve Hewlett. And in this episode, what I want to do is I want to kind of explain fiber. For whatever reason, this is a question that I'm starting to get asked a lot, whether fiber is actually important for good nutrition. So I want to start telling you about this. And the way I'm going to do is first, I'm going to explain to you what fiber is, and then we'll break down like six of the most common myths about fiber. And I really hope that you guys understand this and get this. If you don't, please contact me through social media, through Instagram, Facebook, wherever you go, and ask your questions. I love getting these questions. So, the first thing is fiber is part of one of our macronutrients. So remember, there's three main macronutrients. There's protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And each of these macronutrients, and this is just going to be a real quick summary because I've already done several podcasts on all this. But as far as protein, each of these major macronutrients get broken down to basic building blocks in the intestines. Because, I mean, think about it. When you eat something, that's not going to be able to go across the intestine and float around in your bloodstream the way you put it in your mouth. So your body has to break all this down into its basic building blocks in the intestine before it can ever get absorbed into the bloodstream and then circulate around to the liver, wherever it needs to go. So first, protein as a macronutrient. Whenever you eat protein, it gets broken down to its basic building block, which is amino acids. And remember, there are 9 essential amino acids, meaning that your body doesn't make these, so you have to get it from the nutrition that you eat. And please remember, when you eat, you are not eating just because you have you want something that tastes good, or because you're emotional eating, or because your stomach is growling. The reason why we eat, the reason why God made us to do this, is that is the only way to get nutrients into our body so our body functions to the very, very best. And this by far is the best way you can avoid hospitals, doctor's bills, medications, everything. Giving your body the proper nutrition is of utmost importance. With any disease, whether it's bacterial, viral, anything, if you give your body the nutrients it needs, we have survived through multiple generations since the beginning of time on this natural food, this God-made food. Questions didn't come up until we started making all this man-made, ultra-processed food and all of their marketing going out to everybody, telling them that their food is much better than God's food. That alone has to tell you how crazy this is. So that was a side note. Back to what I was talking about. Okay, so protein gets broken down to amino acids, and there's 9 essential amino acids. Again, this means that your body does not make these. You have to get these from the outside in the nutrition you eat. The other one is fat. All fat that you eat, like animal fat, that gets broken down into fatty acids in the intestines. That goes into the bloodstream, and there are 2 essential fatty acids, your omega 6 and your omega 3s. And again, essential means that your body does not make these. You have to get them from the outside. Then the third one is carbohydrates. Every single carbohydrate that you eat gets broken down to a simple sugar or glucose. So if you have problem with a high blood glucose, the best way to get that blood glucose down is quit putting glucose into your blood, which means quit putting carbohydrates in your mouth. And the big fact, one, all carbohydrates get broken down to glucose. And I'll explain this a little bit more in just a little bit. But the fact is, there are 0 essential carbohydrates. You do not have to eat any carbohydrates whatsoever to have perfectly wonderful, actually healthy body. Okay, that's what you need to have a good healthy body, is just really protein and fat. And there are lots and lots and lots of people, thousands of people, who have gone carnivore, where they don't eat anything but animal meat and fat and butter and real dairy, animal dairy, animal fats, and meat, fish, eggs, things like that. So, and they eat 0 carbs, no fruits, no vegetables, and definitely no ultra processed man-made carbs. That's always out of nutrition. There's no place in nutrition for that whatsoever. But anyway, so that's what I want you to know. You have to eat protein. There's 9 essential amino acids you need. You have to eat fat because there are 2 essential fatty acids you need. You do not have to eat carbohydrates. Okay. Now, The first thing that I want you to know is at its base, all carbohydrates are a type of sugar. Like I said, it gets broken down. So you have single sugars, which are called monosaccharides, and there's only three of these. There's glucose, there's fructose, and there's galactose. And that's just a basic single sugar. Then if you put two of these sugars together, that's called a disaccharide. And there are three of these. And each one of these disaccharides actually has glucose as part of this double sugar. So glucose and fructose together make sucrose. And that's what you think about when you have table sugar. Okay. That's sucrose. Then there's lactose. Lactose, again, is made with glucose, but then also with galactose. And then the third one is called maltose. And maltose is the other disaccharide. And again, it's made with glucose and another glucose. So maltose is actually two glucoses put together. Then after that, so that's your single sugars, and that's your monosaccharides and disaccharides. And then the last one is polysaccharides. And a polysaccharide is when you put a whole bunch of these sugars together at once. And when you break these polysaccharides down, you have digestible and then you have indigestible polysaccharides. So your digestible ones would be, as we've talked about, glycogen. Glycogen is like a little glucose break. That's when you put all these glucoses together. And in animals, we store that in our liver, about 10% of our liver. And this sugar really, it is there to help balance different sugar levels in your body. But the main thing this is used for is for your fight or flight. That's why that's there. It is not there for you to live off all your energy of your body all the time. That's what fat is for. That's why we have a little tiny bit of our liver that has glycogen, and we have fat cells all over our subcutaneous fat cells that store this energy that we're actually supposed to be using for our energy source all the time. So back to this. So there's digestible and there's glycogen, which, like I just said, that's a storage form of glucose in animals. And there's starch, and that's the storage form of glucose in plants. Okay. So starch is just a whole bunch of glucose put together in a plant. So when you take this starch and you grind it down to a fine powder, you have flour. So flour is actually just powdered glucose. So anytime you eat anything with flour, pasta, breads, anything like that, you are putting glucose into your blood. So if you're having trouble with high blood glucose, again, stay away from flour. Okay. So those are the polysaccharides. Those are the digestible ones. Now we go to the indigestible polysaccharides. And this is where fiber comes in. Fiber is an indigestible plant. And there's soluble fiber and there's insoluble fiber. And most plants contain both of these. So first, let's look at the soluble fiber. What does this mean? Again, soluble fiber is an indigestible carbohydrate. That's what it is. And so a soluble one, it dissolves in water. It contains plant pectins and gums. It also turns to gel, and it binds to fatty acids and cholesterol in your stomach or in your intestines. And we'll talk all about this in just a little bit. And it also slows digestion and nutrient absorption. We'll talk about this also. And then also the soluble fiber makes short chain fatty acids. And we will also talk about that later in this podcast. So that's what soluble means. Now there's insoluble fiber. And if you want an idea of what insoluble fiber is, think of sawdust. Okay. If you eat sawdust, if you put sawdust in your mouth, that's going to come out in your stool. Okay. Just like when you eat corn, you see corn come out in your stool. That's what, and that actually is sawdust. They actually put sawdust in our foods. But that's insoluble, and it's called cellulose. So if you're looking at an ingredient and you see cellulose, basically you're talking about either sawdust, literally sawdust, or maybe something like that. And they do carry this. You're going to see this in, like, they put sawdust in Parmesan cheese. They put it in shredded cheeses, frozen pizzas, cake mixes, things like that. So again, just look at your ingredient list, and it should say cellulose because they thought it was going to be too bad to say sawdust in there. But the deal with insoluble fiber, it does not dissolve in water. Okay. It is also included in plant cellulose and hemicellulose. It remains intact in the digestive tract system. So what you eat, the way it looks when you eat is the same way it looks when you expel that later. And it does add bulk to the stool. and it can speed passage of food. Okay. So the insoluble can speed the passage of food, and the soluble can slow the passage of food. So really that's going to negate out, but we'll talk about that also. So what is fiber? Another name for fiber is roughage. And like I said, dietary fiber is part of the plant-derived food that cannot be completely broken down in our digestive tract. And remember, there's no such, since fiber is a carbohydrate and there is no such thing as essential carbohydrate, you don't need carbohydrates, period. That should settle it right there. You do not need fiber. That's it. I could stop the podcast here, but that would not serve you any purpose. So I'm going to keep going. And remember, as far as fiber and the carbohydrates, when we talk about carbohydrates, it basically means animal plant-based material. So that's your grains, your vegetables, your fruits, your nuts, your seeds, your beans, your legumes. These are all different types of carbohydrates. So now let's go on to the myths. Okay. Myth 1, fiber cures constipation. Okay. This is so crazy. What fiber does, just like we saw, okay, whether it's soluble or insoluble, it's going to be staying in your digestive tract, okay? And what it does is it pulls water. So if you eat fiber and you don't have a lot of water in your bowel, it's going to pull that water out of the stool to make it harder. So fiber can actually cause constipation. However, if you have plenty of water on board in your intestines, then it's going to absorb the water from that, and that can bulk up, and that can actually make you go to the bathroom. It could actually give you diarrhea if you're doing too much. So whether fiber causes constipation or whether it helps with constipation totally depends on how much water you have in your bowel. So that's not an argument at all. Okay, that just doesn't even make sense. The second myth, fiber lowers blood cholesterol. Okay, the fact is, yes, fiber can bind to some fatty acids and it can bind to cholesterol. However, the question we have to ask ourselves is this good? And the answer is no, this is not good. We need cholesterol. We need fat. And the reason why we need cholesterol is because several of your hormones, you actually use cholesterol to be made. So they're like testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, these all use cholesterol. Then some of your vitamins like vitamin D also uses cholesterol. And that could be another reason why everybody is so vitamin D deficient, because they're trying to go by the dietary guidelines, not realizing that these were all lies that were told to us. And they're trying to decrease their cholesterol. Well, when you do that, when you decrease your fat, you're also decreasing all your fat soluble vitamins, because you need that fat to be able to get them absorbed. And vitamin D is one of your fat soluble vitamins, as well as vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin K. Okay. So when you don't have fat, when you're keeping fat from being absorbed through your intestines, you're actually keeping these vitamins from being absorbed also. Not a good thing. So we said that hormones are used for testosterone, estrogen, cortisol. It's used for vitamins like vitamin D. And every single cell in your body uses cholesterol in that cell for the cell membrane. So the only way you can make new cells is if you have cholesterol in your body to help you make these new cells. So that's another reason why cholesterol is extremely important. But the other thing that I really want you to know is they also say that you need cholesterol for optimal cognitive function, meaning it makes your brain work better. And the fact is, 23% of your body's total cholesterol is used by the brain. So this makes the brain about 60% fat. And it does this because the preferred fuel source for the brain are ketones. And ketones are what's produced when you break down fatty acids for your energy source. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. We are not supposed to be using carbohydrates for our main energy source. The other thing, that about 20% of the cholesterol in our blood comes from food, and the other 80% is actually produced in our liver and our intestines. So our bodies are sitting here making all this cholesterol because it is so important for our body. It is not this evil thing that the manufacturing food companies are trying to make everybody believe. And the drug companies are trying to make everybody believe, because, and we'll go into that in just a little bit. But anyway, In fact, this is something that I think a lot of people know. Back in 2015, they rewrote the guidelines, and there is no longer an upper limit by the USDA for cholesterol and dietary fat, meaning you can eat all that you have because your body's going to regulate that. So you eat all the fat that you want. There's no limit. However, they never did this. Chances are you've never heard this. And this was in 2015. They totally took the dietary fat out of the guidelines, but they aren't telling anybody because they're making way too much money on ultra processed food for the manufacturers and all these medications and the drug companies. They are making a mint trillions of dollars off of you being sick. Now, the other one, atherosclerosis, is caused by out of control inflammation and high insulin and high glucose levels. Cholesterol is not what causes atherosclerosis. Okay, that's crazy. That was a fable. That's more just lying to us to try to get us to take more of these statins. So actually, like we said, cholesterol is needed for cellular repair, and um, good dietary cholesterol does not cause cardiovascular disease. The reason why you have high cholesterol when they take a blood test, when you have somebody with cardiovascular disease and your cholesterol levels high, is because when you have high glucose, you have high insulin. And when you have high insulin, you also have and this glucose and fructose that we eat all the time, you have a lot of inflammation in your body. And high insulin levels and inflammation and this glucose all come together and they start tearing up your blood vessels. The way your body heals these blood vessels, because just like you said, cholesterol is used in every single cell in the body. So if you're going to be producing more cells to heal those, then you're going to have to put more cholesterol into the blood. So that's why your cholesterol looks high when you have cardiovascular disease. It's not because it caused it. That's as crazy as saying, every time I go by a wreck, I see an ambulance there. I bet the ambulances are causing these wrecks. That's the exact same thing. That is exactly what we're saying. We're saying, oh, that must be causing because we see high cholesterol levels. So again, been proven, 2015, taken out of the guidelines. That is not even an issue anymore, even though drug companies and food companies are trying to make you think that it is. The other thing with cholesterol, and why it's been demonized, is because they've had extremely fraudulent research that was been conducted back in the 1960s, where the sugar industry actually paid off these people to say and to downplay the sugar as the blame for saturated fats. So this was all a money deal backed by the sugar company back in the 1960s that started trying to tell it everybody that you need to stay away from fat, because when you stay away from fat, when they take all that out, now they can put sugar in, and that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to put sugar in all your foods, and they do, and they have. If you look at it, there's sugar in everything, either sugar, high fructose corn syrup, always vegetable and seed oils. That's a whole nother topic, but that's where we get all the inflammation in our bodies. But anyway, this truth is still being suppressed today. And the reason why this is still being suppressed today, saying that you do not need fiber, you do not need any carbohydrates, that's being suppressed because they are making multi-billion dollars on statins. These statins that they're prescribing to everybody for no reason whatsoever. You should never be on a statin. And they're sitting here telling everybody you should. And it's projected that by 2030, these drug companies would make $22.21 billion off the sale of statins, because they're giving statins to everybody and they're using the wrong diagnosis. They should not be giving you a statin because that's going to decrease your cholesterol. And I just explained why that is crazy. You have to have cholesterol. You need cholesterol. It is vital. So statins are not needed, just like all this fiber is not needed. So although high fiber diet may help reduce your cholesterol, that doesn't mean it's a good thing. And low cholesterol, if you have low cholesterol, that's actually linked to things also. That's actually linked to like mortality from stroke, heart disease, and cancer by having low cholesterol. It also leads to depression and higher risk of committing suicide. And it also leads to impaired brain function. Okay. So the fact that fiber could keep cholesterol from getting in your body, that is true, but that is a bad thing. That should be a negative thing for having fiber, along with everything else that we're talking about. Okay, myth number three. Myth number three says that fiber with carb-filled meals prevents blood sugar spikes. Okay, That is a fact. That's a fact. If you have a bunch of fiber in your belly and it'll bind to these glucoses, these carbohydrates, and it'll slowly release the sugar. However, just like with the cholesterol, who cares? The sugar is still getting into your body. It's still going there and it's still going to get turned into fat and it's still going to be stored because you're still raising your insulin levels. So just because you have the best way, if you're trying to eat fiber to keep sugar from getting into your blood, why don't you just not eat the sugar? Just don't eat the carbohydrates and you're not going to have to worry about it getting into your blood because you didn't put it in your mouth. And there's been recent controlled studies that show that fiber intake did not have significant effect on fasting blood glucoses anyway. So again, it's a moot point. Now, fiber can slow digestion, but again, it can also increase digestion. So if you slow digestion and it deletes sugar and getting into the bloodstream, it doesn't matter because you're still getting sugar into the bloodstream, no matter how fast it goes in. So that's it as far as fiber filled prevents sugar spikes. Myth number 4 is fiber helps with satiety and weight loss. Okay, satiety meaning it makes you where you feel full. However, and I this is a very big pet peeve of mine. Eating meat with real animal meat with real animal fat, when you eat that, it will also sit in your stomach for a long time because it takes a long time for your stomach to start digesting all this protein and all this fat. Okay. So that will also keep you feeling full for much longer. And animal meat with animal fat provides all the nutrients that your body needs for healthy nutrients. It provides all your amino acids. It provides your fat for your energy source. And fat is not just an energy source. You need fat for your joints to be able to be lubricate for your joints. We've already talked about cholesterol in the brain. You need fat for everything. I mean, so fat is good. So just that you're eating something to keep food in your stomach for longer, that's only an issue when you eat carbohydrates. Okay. It's not when you're just eating meat and fat. And this is why I actually did an episode on this, episode number 14. It was called What's Up with This New Weight Loss Medication We Keep Hearing About. And this is all about this crazy semaglutide. Because again, and you can listen to that for more, but just the cliff notes of this is, yes, semaglutide can keep food in your stomach for longer. However, it's doing it against your body's natural tendencies. So it's actually starting to cause paralysis of the stomach. And semaglutide has tons of adverse effects, and they're starting to see more and more and more of these. So one, that's what semaglutide does. It keeps that. But the reason it lowers your blood sugar is because it stimulates your insulin. And if you've been listening to my podcast, you know, type 2 diabetes is not a problem with high blood sugar. Yes, high blood sugar is a problem. However, it's just a symptom. High blood sugar is just a symptom of type 2 diabetes. The disease is from high insulin levels causing insulin resistance. So the more carbohydrates you eat, the more glucose gets into your blood, the higher your insulin levels go. And every time you eat more carbohydrates, you keep your insulin levels high. And that's how you become insulin resistant. Okay. So, the deal with semaglutide is, yes, it keeps food in your stomach, and yes, it lowers your blood sugar, but it does it by making the main basic disease worse because it increases your insulin. However, they're not telling anybody this. And that's the problem with this, because if you talk to patients and they're on it, they're like, oh, this is wonderful. I've lost weight and my A1Cs are down. But listen to this. Yes, you lost weight because you quit eating as much as you used to eat. And yes, your A1C came down because it is causing your sugar to go down because it also stimulates your insulin. So yes, it does lower your A1C. Yes, it does make you lose weight. But yes, it can also make type 2 diabetes worse. You do not give insulin to a type 2 diabetic that used to be called non-insulin dependent diabetes. That's what we called it until drug manufacturers came out with insulin. So anyway, yes, if you're on semaglutide, yes, you'll lose weight. Yes, you're going to have low A1C, but no, you're actually going to make the disease worse. So that is not an argument to take it. If you want to take it for a little while you change your eating habits to a healthier one, that's fine. But do not think that this is curing your type 2 diabetes in any way, because it is not. It's the opposite. Okay, off that. The other thing they say is the reason why fiber can cause you to not be as hungry is because fiber causes bloating. So it causes air to produce in your intestines, and it gives you this bloating and this feeling of fullness. But just because you have bloated fullness doesn't mean that that you're going to be losing weight. That doesn't mean that you're not going to eat as much. And is that really what you want to do, is cause bloating in your intestines? So anyway, so that's fiber. Does fiber help with satiety and weight loss? No. Okay. It can, but there's much healthier ways. Myth number 5, fiber helps with heart health. Okay. The fact is, the heart's preferred fuel source, just like the brain, is fatty acids. It's ketones that are produced by fatty acids. It is not carbohydrates like everybody's trying to tell you. So as far as fiber being for heart health, it is not. The way fiber can help with heart health is the fact that fiber can get broken down into short chain fatty acids in the intestines. And that is true. Fiber can get broken down into short chain fatty acids. And that's, we actually need short chain fatty acids. But the deal is, animal fat also provides all your short chain fatty acids. So you don't need fiber to do it if you're eating a good animal fat, like a good steak, a good hamburger, whatever. You're getting all the short chain fatty acids you need. And that is good, because short chain fatty acids, they're used by your cells in your intestines for energy. They are modulators for proper immune function. They are protective against intestinal and epithelial cells. They help protect those. It can help reduce blood pressure, improve insulin resistance and injury, and it decreases the risk of coronary artery disease. These have all been proven with short chain fatty acids, and it's believed to play a role in regulating your body weight, appetite, energy expenditure, glycemic control, and insulin sensitivity. So yes, fiber can help with that because it can provide short chain fatty acids. However, you do not need them. You don't need it at all, because you get all the short chain fatty acids you need from animal fat. So this brings us to the very last one. Myth number 6. Myth number 6 is that fiber protects you from colon cancer. Okay, the fact is, colon cancer, usually when colon cancer comes from the other like other cancers. One is fed by glucose. That's what cancer cells live off. So when you have your insulin levels higher, and you're also putting glucose in, you're actually feeding your cancer cells, versus not putting carbohydrates in your body and not raising your insulin levels and not giving glucose to your cancer cells, which could actually make it better, your cancer better. And the reason why also is because you have bacteria in your bowel. And if this bacteria gets messed up because of the type of food that you eat, this can cause issues in your colon, and this can actually cause colon cancer. But the fact is, undigested food in the colon can lead to inflammation and weak colon cells. So when we're talking about undigested food that's all the way in your lower intestine, that means it's made it all the way through your intestinal tract and got into your colon. It's undigested. What is that food? We just talked about it. It's fiber. It's carbohydrates. That's the kind of stuff, when you eat insoluble or soluble fiber, the indigestible kind, which is in almost every plant, when you eat that stays the same, just like the sawdust we're talking about, all the way through. And it's this undigested food in the colon that leads to inflammation and weak colon cells. So it actually can make colon cancer worse. And when you eat a carnivore diet, or even if you're a ketogenic diet, but when you eat low to no carbohydrates, this reduces inflammation in your body. Blanket statement. It does decrease inflammation. And especially when you're not eating all these ultra processed foods that have all this vegetable oils and seed oils, which also lead to inflammation along with the sugar. So a carnivore diet gives you everything you need. A carnivore diet will, and I'm not pushing a carnivore diet. All I'm pushing is eat God-made food. If you are going to eat fruits and vegetables, just keep them minimally and really eat them when they're seasonal. If there's not a farmer around here that's growing a certain vegetable or fruit that you want to eat, don't eat it. Wait till it's actually being produced. And that's why you can tell by going to farmers markets and getting your fruit, because obviously that was seasonal because you see them in the farmers market. But also, when you do this, when you're eating all these plants, not only when you eat all these plants are you getting these other nutrients we're talking about, which all the micronutrients you can get out of fat also. All your vitamins, all your minerals, you can get that out of fat. But when you eat the plants, you're also eating the plant toxins. Plants have toxins because plants are wanting to survive. They do not want animals to come and eat them. So they produce different toxins. And it depends on the plant the plant as far as what kind of toxins there are, because there are toxins like oxalate crystals, like you're going to see in spinach, kale, almonds, a lot of these. And these little crystals, just picture them like little grains of salt that get into your body, and they can actually lodge in your joints. They can lodge in your elbows, your knees, ankles, shoulders. So if you have pain there, it could be these oxalate crystals. And also if you have renal stones, most renal stones are made up of calcium oxalate crystals. The calcium comes from your bones or your nutrition, and the oxalate crystals come from these plants. Put those together, and that's how you get renal stones. So besides the oxalate crystals, you also have tannins, you have lectins, you have phytic acid, you have and then if you're having this stuff that's in these man-made foods, you also have to worry about pesticides, herbicides. And now when I'm trying to get people to quit putting so many chemicals in your body, it's not nutrition, it's not food. You'll know if you have food or not, because if you eat it, you're not going to be hungry anymore. But if you eat and just a couple hours later you're hungry again, that means you just gave your body zero nutrients, and it wants more because it doesn't know what you're eating. It just knows whether it can use what you eat or not. And all these chemicals that we're putting in our bodies are causing all kinds of inflammation and screwing our bodies up because it doesn't know what to do with all these chemicals. Like I said, the herbicides, the pesticides, all this stuff that they're spraying on all our wheat, corn, soy, everything, all these grains that they're putting in this food. You are also eating pesticides and herbicides. And now we have this great thing called a pill. It's APEEL. If you haven't looked at that, be careful where you look, because this is a chemical that's come out by Bill Gates. So why a computer guy is telling everybody what proper nutrition is, I have no idea. Maybe you can guess. However, this is a pill. It's a coating that they can spray on fruits and vegetables. And this appeal is supposed to keep these fruits and vegetables longer for longer periods of time. If you read all the marketing from the food manufacturer and drug manufacturers and whoever else Bill Gates is paying, then they're going to say, oh, this is all natural because it's made out of plants. It's a lie. It is not. It may be made out of plants, but it has all kinds of chemicals in there. I mean, just think of it. It's something that you can spray on a fruit or a vegetable, and this is supposed to help keep it ripe for a lot longer period of time. It's not natural. And if it's not natural, that means it's chemicals that's going in your body that's going to be causing more harm. And the problem is they're spraying this pill on fruits and vegetables everywhere, even like Walmart, Costco, all these places. And sometimes they'll put a label on it that says that they're using a pill. But sometimes all they have to do is just have a sign somewhere in the store that says, oh, by the way, we use a pill on our fruits and vegetables. So if you don't see that sign, you don't know that you're eating just a bunch of more chemicals that are put out by these chemical companies, Bill Gates, drug companies, food companies. It just, the best way to avoid all the money mongering that these people are doing is quit eating their food, quit eating ultra processed food, and stick to just real meat, real fruits, real vegetables, hopefully something that you can get from local farmers. That's by far is going to be the best. And that's going to decrease all the intestinal inflammation, all these weak colon cells, and the risk of colon cancer. So these chemicals and all this fibers are actually what's called, and the vegetable and seed oils, the fructose, the high insulin levels, all this stuff is what is causing the colon cancer. So no, fiber is not going to be protective. It can actually make that worse. So I know this one went longer than I usually do, but I thought it was very important that you understand. So most of the things you hear about fiber, if you hear anything about fiber that you have to eat it, it is wrong. It's lie, and you're probably being subjected to a marketing technique. Chances are very, very high that you are being subjected to marketing techniques because they still want you to eat their food. And that conglomerate is going to go crazy. If you keep giving your money to these food companies and these drug companies, they're going to continue to put out this shoddy research and this poor information. So the best way to not have to deal with that is quit giving your money to them and give your money to your local farmers where they're actually going to produce healthy nutrition for your body. And remember, healthy nutrition for your body is key number one to preventing you from getting all these other diseases that you're constantly hearing about. So I'll let it go for now. That's all I wanted to tell you. And once again, thank you so much for listening and have a great week. And remember, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life.